Wall Street Memes Casino,
I'm fine.
and Sportsbook.
This is Colin McGuigan for IFL TV. Delighted to be joined by Eddie Hearn in Las Vegas. Eddie, I've been on your case all morning. I think I've WhatsApped you, Instagram message.
Obviously, that news breaks, and you lot are just like, where are you? Where are you? Like, even if it's a Zoom now, it's like, mate, I do have a life. I mean, firstly, it's not even my show. Two, like, just relax. We've got the weigh-in. You'll see me in an hour and a half.
Just out of interest, like, what were you doing this morning? Because normally you read messages straight away.
We found out we had Joe Cordina on the card, Jai Opatara on the card, and we found out obviously a little bit before it was made public. Just like, can't believe it, really. You know, I mean, like I said, it's not our show, but we have some fighters on the show, and I know I've been there before when this kind of thing happens, 10 days out or 2 weeks out. It's just devastating for all the work that's gone in, the promos, the press conferences, but it's also boxing. And it's just an unfortunate set of events that are going to put a great fight back by we don't know how long. You know, I mean, there's no point asking me what's going to happen because it's not my main event. I spoke to George Roy, and obviously that, you know, him and Spencer and His Excellency will work it out. Anything's possible, but, you know, speaking just with my view, I expect it just to be rescheduled, whether that's April or May, something like that.
Eddie Hearn of 12 months ago would be lapping this up, having a little joke about Fury out of it. Is it different now, Eddie? Is that relationship just changed everything?
It is, but also we're all working together. I had two fighters on the show. I'm gutted for them.
But do you think the show could still possibly go ahead with a different main event? There's been talk of Hrgovic.
I mean, again, I don't have the knowledge of the situation at this point to tell you whether that's likely or not. My gut feeling is no. I do not believe Usyk will fight somebody else on February the 17th. I believe the fight will be delayed till April or May. But that's just my opinion rather than speaking of fact or speaking to anybody involved. So these kind of things, when they first happen, takes a little bit. You know, I've been here many times, and you just have to just take a breath, go into the room, another room, give yourself a slap round the face, have a little cry, and say, "This is boxing. What are we going to do now? We've got to just make the right decisions." And that's over to, you know, I'm sure His Excellency will be just probably as disappointed as anybody. But this is boxing. We've been here many times before. Unfortunately, it's affected the biggest fight in boxing.
Do you know the finer details of exactly what happened, who he was sparring? Or
No. I mean, you're talking to me like he's my fighter, you know. It looks like a bad cut. I've seen the footage. Is it an elbow or something like that? I don't know. I mean, he spars with an open head guard, but he sparred thousands of rounds in his career. So, yeah, I've seen, is it? Yeah, I've had, like, even in my group chats with my mates, that sounds fishy to me. What? I'm like, guys, like, what do you think? Just going to go out and just carve himself open with a knife? Like, he's trained a whole camp. He's 2 weeks away from a monster payday and a fight against the Undisputed Championship. It's not hooky. It's just boxing. It happens. But it's devastating when it's a fight of that magnitude.
in terms of your fighters on the card, Jai Opatara, Joe Cordina, will you be looking for some sort of information soon so you can reschedule bouts for them soon?
I've already spoken to George about it, and quite frankly, that's the last thing on their mind at the moment, I would think. But obviously, for us, it's important to make sure those fights are rescheduled, and they get an opportunity to fight ASAP. Obviously, we've got the Matchroom Queensbury card coming up. One of them could land on there, but it's likely that they will fight on the rescheduled date, which we hope is sooner rather than later.
In terms of Ben Davison has said before that he would love the opportunity for AJ to face Usyk again. If His Excellency Turki El-Sheikh came to you and said, look, it's 2 weeks before, let's make Usyk against AJ again, would you agree to it?
I mean, everybody's capable of making offers, but at the end of the day, it's 2 weeks tomorrow. AJ's been in camp for, 2 weeks? To switch to Ngannou to Usyk on 2 weeks' notice is not ideal. But we'll see what conversations happen. AJ's focused on Francis Ngannou on March the 8th. It's 4 weeks tomorrow. And that's the focus of AJ, Ben and the team.
Carl Froch and John Fury, what do you make of that situation?
Yeah, I think in a way they're both good for boxing. Like, they're both big characters. Obviously, Carl's been there and done it. I think he's one of the most successful British fighters of all time. John's John, and he's a character in himself. You can't, like, one thing Carl Froch is definitely not is a shithouse. He has his faults, as we all do. But you've got to be a little bit careful with Carl, because if you tell Carl he's a shithouse, and when you see him you're going to give him a slap, he won't muck around. Like, and when those two come together, if they do, like, it will be interesting. But, you know, we've just got to... I think, you know, John hasn't always been the best at accepting criticism, because he feels like his son doesn't deserve criticism, and I think as a father he'd probably be the same. So it's difficult. But, you know, a little bit of back and forth for you boys in the YouTube world. I'm sure you're loving it.
I've just got a message saying Philip Hergovich just came out and said that he wants to fight Usyk and he's ready to go in 2 weeks. What do you make of those comments?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing if I was Philip Hergovich. You know, I don't know if he's been in camp. He didn't have a fight scheduled, but obviously if the money was the money, I'm sure he'd be willing to consider it. But
to keep the show ahead, do you believe that would be the right move, though?
Depends when Fury, you know, depends when the doctors, depends when Tyson Fury says I'll be ready. If you're talking about April or early May, I don't see a world where Usyk takes another fight with a threat of not making the Fury fight. So, you know, again, not my fight, so I can only tell you like my opinion. That's it.
In terms of you last week, you met the other promoters in LA. No one's really asked you about this, I don't believe. I haven't seen anything. What was that conversation? How did that even come about?
It was Maurizio Suleiman reached out to every promoter in the world and said, I would like to hold a summit in Las Vegas to discuss the future of the sport, how we can work together, what we can change, what we can improve on. And many attended, some didn't. It wasn't easy just to fly to Vegas for it, but it was good. You know, myself, Top Rank, PBC, Zamfa, Churchy, Louis de Cubas, quite a few others, Tom Brown. It was good. Like,
instructive conversations for
just
you?
a show of will more than anything. There was some good conversations as well, and obviously a lot of fights being discussed and stuff like that. But more a show of will.
Did Bob Arum speak to you at all?
Yeah, of course. It was like me and Bob. Like, Bob's Bob. Like, I said the other day, you could burn Bob Arum's house down, and he would do a deal with you that evening for a fight. You ain't got to really worry about what you say about Bob. Bob is going to walk into a press conference, he's going to come up to me, he's going to go, Eddie, hello, how you doing? And 10 yards over there, he's going to slag me off and call me every name under the sun. And
Do you respect that and rate it?
I don't mind.
Eddie, you were at the UFC Performance Institute. Does that entice you into wanting to do a matchroom equivalent?
Oh, I'd love to. I mean, that's the goal. I said in an interview yesterday, I don't mind being a, you know, brown noser, lick arse, whatever you want to say. Dana White, UFC, that's the levels. There's levels across everything in life, and that is where I want to be. And that's good to show me. I don't want to get complacent of how I think we're doing well, because when I think we're doing well, I go to the UFC Performance Institute and I go to look at that business and I look at Dana White's office and his own individual spa and gym and cold plunge and infrared sauna and oxygen chamber, and I go, they are the levels, baby. That's where we want to be.
Did you have a meeting with him this week at all?
Yeah.
What did you discuss in that meeting? Anything boxing related?
Every time I'm in Vegas, I ask to meet him, and he always says yes, and he's always been very kind with his time. For me, we talk about the landscape of boxing. I talk a little bit about UFC. We talk about the international markets, a little bit about our respective businesses. Like I say, I have a huge amount of respect for him, and I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I only value people on how they treat me, and he's always been, as I said, very kind with his time.
Two more from me. Did you see the Eubank interview with Coogan? Any snippets of that? And what did you make of his comments?
Not really. I mean, obviously he's pushing Harlem Eubank. It's not a fight we're interested in. We want to make Chris Eubank. I said yesterday, like, people keep talking about my son's not making 160. He's made 160 like his whole career, including his last 2 fights. What about Conor Benn moving up from 147, 2 divisions to fight a much bigger man? No one's mentioning that. So, look, we keep talking about it, but
he blames you for it. But why is that?
Because we don't really get on. I respect him, and I respect him as a fighter. And don't forget, my family was very close to him. My dad was best man at his wedding. and they're still close. But I respect him as a fighter and a warrior, but I don't really like him, to be honest with you.
Last one from me. Conor Benn, Peter Dobson. Have you seen the footage of Peter Dobson's fight in Russia that leaked last night?
No.
In that fight, he said he was robbed. In my opinion, he wasn't robbed. He got beat quite comfortably. Do you believe that that's a disadvantage for him coming into this fighting
Not really, because apparently he went over to basically have a spar because he hadn't boxed in 18 months, or because the Kevin Ojako fight fell through, the Pat McCormack fight fell through, and basically wanted to get some kind of competitive sparring. So had a contact, went out there, don't think tried particularly hard, didn't want to get too involved, but wanted to go through the process of getting in a ring and preparing for Conor Benn. So I know the guy, I know people around him, and he'll give it a good go tomorrow night, but I think he'll get iced.
Final one for the fans. Why should they tune in on DAZN tomorrow at the UK time of 10:30?
It's a really good fun card. I mean, you got Khalil Coe is in a great fight against Asuna, Amo Williams is in a great fight, Johnny Fisher's in a good test, but most of all you got Conor Benn, who I think pound for pound one of the most exciting fighters on the planet. 10:30 UK, a Brit headlining on the Las Vegas Strip. Don't blink. He's going to try and take his head off in the first round, and he might well do it, like his father did 24 years ago against Aaron Barkley.
Eddie Hearn, always a pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Colin.
Wall Street Memes Casino
I'm fine.
and Sportsbook.